Before we begin, 3 messages. So, you've taken some of the advice that has come from Untethered.tv guests, built an app, and now you're turning your attention to generating some hard-earned revenue. Then you should be looking at Pontiflex app leads. Some of your peers who are using app leads are earning CPMs 100 times the industry average. And if you need any other reasons to start, I'll give you 2 more. You can run sign-up ads from top brands, the ones that you recognize, and it won't take your precious users out of your app. Go to appleads.com, that's appleads.com, to sign up. When my company needed to develop a key mobile product, one that I was counting on as a new source of revenue, I knew exactly who to turn to: Macadamian. They delivered on time with incredible attention to detail, and I was able to get product into customers' hands faster than I ever thought possible. I've personally known them for 10 years, and they do make great products even better. Check them out at www.macadamian.com. Here's a riddle. How do you build native cross-platform mobile applications quickly without having to rewrite code and hire consultants at a huge cost? Titanium from Appcelerator. Called the easy button for mobile application development, it allows you to focus more on what's important, getting product out the door. Join the more than 1.5 million active developers who have created over 13,000 apps at www.appcelerator.com. Hello everybody, welcome to Untethered.tv. This is the place you come to day after day for casual conversations with mobile rock stars, for these deep dives into companies and see how they're actually building theirs out, how you can leverage what they're doing, or how you can actually use their services in order to be able to make some money for your company. And that's exactly what we're going to be focusing on today. In part, as you know, these are long conversations around mobile, and sometimes they take a little bit of a detour, but we're going to try to stay at least a little bit on that part of how you can actually leverage this company's services. The company in question is a company called InMobi. They are a 4-plus-year-old company that started out in Asia Pacific. It's the largest ad network on the planet for mobile advertising network on the planet. These guys were the first to hit 100 billion ad impressions. They do 36 billion monthly impressions. They are invested in by Kleiner Perkins, Caulfield and Byers, among others. This is a massive play. They've got some of the biggest brands that are advertising through this. And we've got today from Menlo Park, Anne Frisbie, who is the VP and Managing Director for North America. Did I forget anything in there, Anne?
No, it sounds great. I'm excited to be a rock star.
Exactly. Well, this is that show that really does. There's a limited number of you guys out there that are changing the face of mobile, and I think InMobi is doing that for sure, based on these statistics. One of the things that I didn't mention was that that the data that comes from this network is staggering, and the outcome that InMobi puts out, I mean, the reports are incredible just about the trends that are happening out there, from handsets usage to operating system usage to, customer sentiment. It's incredible. I don't know how you guys do it. You must have an army of people around the world that are out there working for you.
I'll let our head of research know. He's fabulous.
Well, I'm blown away, and the company itself. We're gonna do a quick introduction. So, you are the world's largest independent mobile advertising network, but talk about. There's got to be something deeper than that. I mean, who is InMobi?
So, InMobi is really a company that fundamentally believes that mobile is going to change people's lives. That it's almost as essential as, air and water and food. And
electricity, exactly. It's an absolute conduit, right?
Yeah, and it is, I think having the vantage point of Asia has really set a tone for the company in terms of we really fundamentally believe this is the primary or will be the primary digital media channel, and that even more importantly, that it's a real change agent for people's lives and for brands being able to connect with consumers around the world.
I mean, what a great philosophy. I think that I would hope that everybody who's listening or watching this subscribes to that same philosophy, because it's something that we've been espousing for in every single episode that I've ever done on Untether. But you guys really chose the meteoric rise, from 4 years, in 4 years, to be able to reach as many people as you have and create the impact that you have. Because not only are you building a business of your own, you're also helping other companies build their own business, and even another is helping companies expand or extend their brand into the mobile space. So you're attacking this on 3 fronts. It's pretty daunting task to be able to get out there and do.
I would agree. I mean, I think we knew this business would really be about scale, and we also knew that this business was really about giving our customers ways to really have value, right, and return on investment for working with us. And I think that focus has really paid off, and you can see that in the products that we deliver and in the growth that we've been able to achieve.
So I mean, starting off in Asia Pacific, as you said, great vantage point, because even in 2007 they were probably 10 years ahead of North America when it came to what was going on in the mobile space. When did you guys move into the Americas, North America?
Yeah, so it has been a trip from east to west. We actually launched in North America officially 1 year ago. We just celebrated our 1 year anniversary on June 15th. We had been in this market working with publishers for many years, for probably 3 years. But certainly we launched our direct advertising network in this market 1 year ago. So that has been a different approach than other companies.
So, yeah, I mean, probably. And did you notice did you notice a bump when you moved into America? Was it kind of, did you arrive to waiting arms kind of thing, where they were waiting for a service like what you guys provided?
Well, certainly it's been an amazing route in the past year. The North America has clearly become our largest region in the company, going from really one of our smallest. We obviously do a tremendous amount of business in Asia Pacific and in Europe. So that growth has been phenomenal. I think that we really also came to this market when it was under its own set of changes. The market prior to about a year ago in the U.S. was really a feature phone market, and really predominantly driven by digital content advertising buyers that didn't even have the suite of content that they now can offer to consumers. And it's really switched into obviously a predominantly smartphone market with just a lot of benefits as a result of that.
And I think adding to that has been this transition from for pay applications into freemium or advertising supported. I mean, I think a report came out this week that said it reversed the numbers. It used to be like 80% of apps were purchased and 20% were generated revenue from in-app advertising, and that kind of in a very short period of time just turned around, where it's 20% are premium apps. They've labeled them, that actually have a cost, and the rest of them are free with advertising supported. So it was like a confluence that you couldn't have asked for a better timing.
Exactly, and I think the quality. I mean, what we really found a year ago when we asked consumers what was their tolerance in advertising, and you came back with really positive stats. I mean, consumers really understood that value exchange, that I can get great content for free, I'm willing to take ads with it. And I think, at least in this market, I think consumers were somewhat trained from the PC website that was part of what they got, great content exchange from advertising. And I think more importantly, in mobile, people actually are finding a lot of benefit from the advertising because it enables them to discover new things that they weren't aware were available on the devices. So there's a lot of positive brand equity and passion even around the advertising that I think comes out in the studies that consumers say what they're getting from advertising.
I always, you always worry about advertising, especially cluttering up mobile, because small screen, there's always that concern. When you guys were going into the North American market, or even when you were starting, what was the thought process around this? Like, you don't want to be in your face. You want to make sure that the experience is good, and you don't want to bring with it the baggage that the web advertising world has, right? Which is, getting better, but still, there is that baggage that comes with it. How did you guys approach that?
Well, that's what's so interesting. I actually think North America has had a challenge relative to other markets. As you know, on the PC website of the fence, about 5 countries made up a majority of that opportunity. Whereas in mobile, it's much more of a global revolution.
Yes.
In fact, even now, um, while the US really makes up a majority of revenue for all online advertising, in mobile, the US is driving a very small percentage of mobile advertising, right? I was looking at the mobile display numbers, and it's something like 70% of online advertising is from the US, whereas in mobile, it's about 20%. And I think that the US, as a result, did have a lot of baggage in wanting to approach mobile advertising in the exact same way that they've been doing PC web advertising.
Right.
And while that gave us, I think, a lot of strengths in digital marketing and digital advertising, I've been in digital media for since 1997, right? So I myself have this baggage.
Yeah.
But I think that other countries didn't. And I think it enabled them to have a fresh look. And we were really able to leverage that perspective and bring both together, right? The best of both worlds. Because there are some obviously great things we do here in terms of digital marketing. So I agree, though, that you have to try to leverage some smarts about the PC web, but also try to do it differently and new and not limit yourself.
Yeah, I mean, I think that's the key is that if you go in with the same kind of mentality that you did on the website, you're going to just, limit yourself to a banner, right? And that's not what you guys did, because you guys were one of the first companies I saw that did 3D mobile 3D banner advertisements or advertising, and you're definitely not just thinking within the confines of an animated banner, right? At that point, you're thinking a little bit beyond that.
That's exactly right. I mean, I think 3D advertising, we just did a campaign in the UK. It promoted a device for Samsung. It was phenomenal. The creative is amazing, and I think it uses native capabilities, in-app capabilities that are on the iOS platform. So it's something that's just not possible on the PC web or even with HTML5 at this point. So we are trying to test things, test the new immersiveness, that one-to-one personal communication that brands can have on the device. I think another great example, when we did the ad effectiveness study last year, we found in certain categories that consumers were really willing to call businesses, right? Place calls into businesses. And once again, that's such a natural use of the device,
Sure.
right? I mean, it is, besides iPod touches, basically it is a phone.
Yep.
And I think that's another thing, how do you test it? It's a very personal device. It's a social device in terms of talking to your friends, but also making phone calls. So how do you leverage that in the ways that you get effectiveness from your advertising?
See, I love that thinking, because when I talk to a lot of companies about mobile strategy and about that you've got to kind of suspend what you did before and come at mobile with a completely a new look. So kind of new eyes in mobile. And you have to start with mobile first. So think about what that device can do, and then work backwards and see then how you can whatever you're doing, whether it's a business strategy or advertising, can support the phone. Don't let the phone just be a conduit to what you're currently doing.
Yeah, and I think it's interesting. The new example I see in this, because I'm really in agreement with you on this, like what's that right balance? Be smart, but also keep your eyes open, right? Yep. To what's possible. And I think the new example of this is around apps, which we talked about earlier. I mean, consumers currently are having a love affair with apps, right? The stats are essentially there's been about 18 billion downloads of apps. And what's interesting, right, is that apps may be popular for 3 days, 2 weeks. They may last for long times, but it's a little bit like the music or, a phenomenon, right? Yep. There's hits. And how, as a brand, do you take advantage of those hits that you don't know who they're going to come from or when they're going to come or how long they're going to last? And yet you also know as a brand that essentially it's more common now to ask your friends what apps they have on their phone than what music they're listening to. So we're talking about a true social cultural change. And I think as, an agency or a planner, it's a very big challenge, right? Because you want to list the sites that you know and love, that you have run on for a long time. I mean, you've been doing digital media, let's say, for 10 years. But yet now there's this whole new set of content that's really, we believe, a huge opportunity for the brands, and it requires a fresh set of eyes with, some trust in partners, to make sure you can take advantage of these new trends and opportunities.
I mean, it's so. I love that. I love the analogy that apps are like top 40 hits, right? So it's like whatever it is. Angry Birds maybe has a little bit a longer shelf life. But so that might be like a U2 song versus, or like a Lady Gaga song, versus some of these apps that are literally like 3-day use, like Katy Perry, right? It's like
right.
That song is
Rihanna, Katy Perry, something like that.
Yeah, I love that analogy. It's so appropriate for the way that the mobile space is going. Obviously, there's a transition here because there's got to be an action that comes to it. It's one thing that I wrote this blog post months ago about a click-through rate on a mobile banner advertisement of 2% or 2.5% that people are heralding as a success. To me, would be a failure, would be an absolute failure. There's no reason why such a personalized device with so much information about who I am and what I do and what I love and what the app that I downloaded indicating my preferences, it should be a 98% click-through if you're doing your job properly as an advertiser or as a company that builds around that. But ultimately, that click-through, whatever it is, has got to lead to something, right? So it's got to lead to a buy or a call or an interaction. Is there a relationship between great advertising in the mobile space and that burgeoning mobile commerce world where it's like, people are clicking to buy now or showing an intent to buy? Are we seeing that kind of stuff?
Yeah, it's interesting. I mean, I think what's driving, so we have a product called InMobi Analytics, and we think it's a leading product in the industry. We have a ton of our clients that use it. It's pretty well used across North America. And it enables us to optimize the buy in terms of where we serve those ads based on those back-end goals of the campaign. So if the goals are brand engagement, or the goals are selling something, or they're getting an email registration, so lead generation, whatever the back-end goals are. And what I will say is I think that targeting is absolutely, so separate from creative, which you're bringing up, which clearly has an impact, but targeting, like which user am I reaching, at what time of day am I reaching them, and what type of content are they, on what device are they on, how are they connecting to that device, right? If I have a huge download and they're not on Wi-Fi, that's going to cause me performance problems, right? So there's all these new things that have to get taken into account, and I think we're trying to create this scalable tool so that you can say what your goals are and then have your creative run against those goals and then learn from that, right? Because that's the key thing. How do we then get those insights out of the system to make everyone smarter? Because we don't always know going in what's going to work best for a campaign and the goals, right? We have to learn together.
So, I mean, you said something there that was very clear, is that there are you have to go in there obviously with some specific goals when it comes to, you don't just put ads out, and like Google AdSense I think has done that. It's democratized it so much that people feel that, listen, I'm gonna test and I'm gonna try, and I think that part of that is in the mobile space, but you have to have the goals. And what I wrote down were, I mean, your goal should be either lead generation, brand awareness, or would you consider commerce in there as well, some kind of transaction?
Oh, absolutely. Yeah, we have a whole product around commerce called Smart Pay, so we try to help advertisers all the way through to purchase on the phones. I mean, this channel, I mean, what's funny, right, is the channel's become, I mean, there's a variety of categories that used to be in-store purchase categories, books, music, movies, that now are all considered digital goods.
Yeah.
Right? And I'm like, wow, that's just an amazing statement, and you see why, companies, Blockbuster or whoever it is, are having challenges with their business model. I mean, this has been a radical shift by consumers, and we do think that the phone is going to be a major purchasing channel in and of itself, let alone influencing in-store purchases.
I completely agree. And you did a presentation a while back at the Mobile Marketing Association Forum in New York on mobile commerce and consumers' readiness or accepted, I guess, their acceptance of mobile commerce. And I mean, what was the gist of that? What was the most surprising thing that came out of the research that you guys are doing at InMobi?
Yeah, well, the most surprising thing is that a lot of consumers are purchasing on their phones. So the study basically showed in the US, we did this in 12 countries. So we actually did it in 3 different languages, 12 countries, but at least just in the US, about 67% of consumers that we surveyed, and our survey responses were almost 2,400. So it was a big survey,
Yeah.
and just done in February and March, so very recent data. But 67% of them are saying they're using the phone to make direct purchases. That's not even influenced purchases. So that was an incredible statement to me. Those numbers even get higher when you go to emerging markets versus developed markets. But I think regardless, like having it be commonplace for consumers after smartphones being in this market such a short time period really show how much faster the adoption is than when the PC web launched. In terms of consumers being comfortable with buying.
Do you know what they were? So obviously digital goods. I mean, was there a category that you found that they were buying more of, or was it the standard stuff that you would expect, like music and ringtones and that kind of stuff?
So 56% of the most common category is certainly digital goods.
Yeah.
With that said, in apparel and consumer electronics, you had anywhere from about 20% of consumers saying they are making purchases in those categories.
Wow.
Right? So even
Hard
when
goods.
we take out digital goods, we had an estimate of about 60 million consumers in the U.S. making purchases directly on their phone that aren't digital goods.
How many million?
60 million.
60. That's incredible.
Yeah. So I think it's amazing. And I think we're really hard on ourselves in the industry because we think there's no way consumers could be happy with this. But yet consumers, we have a little bit of a leeway, I think, for a bit, because consumers are so happy with the convenience of the device itself.
Yeah.
Now, with that said, when we get back to those metrics, like what matters in getting your goals accomplished, there's a huge difference between an advertiser's ability to have strong performance if they have a mobile optimized experience, whether that's app, mobile web, or tablet optimized, versus none, right? So there absolutely is impact on that. But right now, consumers are giving us a little bit of leeway because they're just so happy they can get whatever it is they wanted done when they were on the go, when they were on the run, when they were sitting, wherever they are. Their phone is always with them. So it's a great device and gives a lot of opportunity.
It's so incredible to think about. I mean, I'm not going to show you my fanboy status of the mobile industry because it's pretty obvious. I mean, I'm immersed in it. I love it. And I get very excited about it. And that's why it always shocks me when I hear these kinds of statistics, like 60 million purchases, hard goods. These aren't digital goods, downloads, apps. These are, Best Buy equivalent, buying hard goods. And then I bump into companies that don't have a mobile optimized experience, even though it's so important. Whether you're a dry cleaner or a multi-million or a multi-location company, and they say, well, mobile's not important to us. And I shake my head.
So yesterday I was looking at this. So the rate at which companies in the U.S. are building mobile websites is substantially faster than what happened when the internet launched.
Right. So
I don't want to be negative. I think that companies are trying to focus. With that said, I think there's two challenges. One is we are now in a world of a fragmented internet. We are not going back to a single internet.
Right.
That is why the world has changed with mobile. You now have to have different types of experiences depending on the form factor. So this requires a different way to think about resources, to think about tracking, to think about optimization, to think about everything. And I think that presents challenges.
Yeah.
With that said, a majority of major companies in the U.S. do not even have a single optimized experience, let alone that they're tackling all the forms. So we have a long way to go, but I think 2011 to 2012, I think companies are going to make a huge leap forward. It's going to pay off on their returns, but I think it is hard to get resources for emerging technologies out of the gate. But I do see good signs.
Yeah, I was around during the web days. You were heavily involved during the web days, and I think that the big difference between now and then was that during those early days in the web, you were pushing, right? nobody had heard of the web. Nobody was using a browser. Nobody understood how to connect to the internet. So it was a longer sales cycle, and you were literally pushing companies along, saying like, blind faith, trust me, trust me, trust me. Whereas today, people are walking around with these in their hand, and there's a lot of pull, right? So that's where you say that there's a lot of forgiveness from the consumer, but that's going to wear out very quickly.
Well, it's interesting. It's interesting you say on the web. I mean, I think on the web, the pitch was usually around fear.
Yeah.
If you don't do this, you're in trouble. Whereas I think mobile, what's exciting is people really are excited about it.
Yeah.
It's not from fear that I think they're motivated. I think that they themselves can see how exciting the devices are. I give a lot of credit to both Apple and Android platforms for bringing these great experiences.
Yeah.
And I also give a lot of credit to application developers, especially independent ones outside of major media companies who are also doing great stuff, but that are really pushing the boundaries to make the experience so exciting for consumers. So I think, one good thing is it's less about fear than it is about, the excitement around it. So that's great. And then maybe that motivates people even more.
Yeah, well, I mean, that's a very good, I remember those days. If you don't do this, if you're going to go out of business.
That was my pitch at the time. So.
It was. It's slightly different now, right? Mobile is so great because it's an enabling technology. And that's really what helps these companies. It's kind of a utopia for free and open, which is a really interesting change compared to what it was, during the browser wars of the mid to late 90s, and then you were right in the middle of the search engine wars as well with Alta Vista and Yahoo, there is that kind of palpable excitement, but this is a really it is a world-changing environment. So, I want to just bring it back to InMobi for a second, as we went down that path. It's when you start to, I'm a big believer in independent software developers and the smaller guys that are out there building applications. And I buy a lot of apps and I support a lot of these guys. And my only hope is that they generate enough income to be able to come out with another version or a new product. I saw there was a great case study on your website from Anneapos software, and I love these guys. The virtual shotgun and a huge fan of those guys, and the volume that they do is incredible. But how can companies like that, like Anneapos and the independent software guys, how can they use what you guys have to be able to stay in business or generate income or become a conduit to transactions so that they can ultimately stay in business?
Yeah, so we actually have up on our website a sheet that really helps independent developers understand how to drive revenue and how they can work with us or other players in the space. But I think, we make a ton of payments out to the independent app developers for advertising. We work with probably 12,000 different application developers around the globe. A lot of them follow us on Twitter to see what we're doing, and we try to provide them useful information. We really do see them as the rock stars,
right.
Not myself. I think that they add so much excitement and great ideas to this space. And I know that, we want to make them as successful as possible and provide them more and more services and tools from the ground up. I think you'll see us making a lot of moves around the in-app payment space. We obviously have rolled out Smart Pay.
Yeah.
Which right now doesn't address the in-app side, but obviously that's a huge area of focus for us is how do we enable these companies to be profitable so that they can continue to do great innovations to help all of us. And I think it's a great opportunity for the brands to participate. So.
Certainly from a brand, if I'm a brand, I think the biggest decision point is the distribution that I can get for whatever it is that I'm trying to sell. So, I don't think that immersive 3D ad that you did for Samsung was inexpensive. I think, there's a great video of it on your blog, on your website, and that kind of immersive environment or that kind of immersive experience costs a lot of money. There's got to be an ROI. There's got to be an anticipated return on that. But for the most part, is that what influences people's decision to go with you guys? Is that reach of software developers that you have, the distribution, the ad impressions, but also the analytics and the metrics that you guys provide on the back end?
Oh, absolutely. So I think our strength in technology, so that you know for sure it's going to be easy to launch with us, that there's going to be reliability, that we're going to give you a great consumer experience, is absolutely critical. I think the other thing that we're really finding is we're a key strategic partner for any publisher right now in mobile. As I was saying, on a global standpoint, only 20% of the dollars in the mobile advertising space are generated for companies out of the U.S.
Yeah.
This is a critical change. Not only will your consumers come from other countries, so you need to use us and our local sales forces that are in 14 different cities around the globe, but more importantly, there's a lot of companies that are doing global planning, global spending, and that where the company sits isn't necessarily where they're spending their dollars. We see, for example, Japanese companies, so you think about someone like DNA, who just bought Engimoker for $400 million. DNA is getting aggressive in the United States. Now, they're a Japanese company, and we have a full team in Tokyo, and we're able to make sure that advertisers out of Japan, advertisers out of Europe, can market anywhere in mobile. And so we bring a diversity of revenue and really access, I mean, think about it, access to 80% of mobile ad dollars from our international sales teams, right? So that's a huge shift from where PC Web was, where you really could rely on just a US-based sales force to do well on monetization.
I just want to key in on one of the points that you said is that the beauty of mobile is that when you build an application and you can distribute it globally almost immediately, right? You just go on the app stores and you're out there and you're distributing it. So availability globally, but the flip side is exactly as you said. I just want to reiterate that point, is that advertising dollars are not your local advertising dollars, local to your city, your state, or your country. Opportunities, as you said, 80% of the opportunity is outside of where you are right now in the States or in Canada. So tapping into that revenue potential has got to be huge. And so that's a huge...
And I think that trend's going to continue. I mean, I think mobile's way more of a global platform. And so I think that's a huge reason that companies work with us. I think this is where we're going. 21st century marketing is a fragmented internet. It's an on-demand, always with you, always on device. That's a huge change from being a tethered to the wall device. And it's a global platform. This is something where, I mean, there's US-based companies, obviously, that have gotten, that leverage us for their plans to expand into China.
Right.
I mean, breaking into countries with more than 1 billion consumers is obviously critical for success for US-based companies as well. So I think it runs both ways, and I think you will see more global planning, even if it continues to have local buying, and more requirement by publishers that they are able to tap into that revenue.
Let me ask you this: is one of the reasons why, I mean, mobile is so appealing, is probably because that it's one of the least expensive ways to get into a new market or to test a new market. Is that accurate?
Well, so I am hearing from clients that that execute both lead generation campaigns on PC Web and lead generation campaigns in mobile, that mobile has stronger results for them, so better return on investment results in PC Web. To me, that means I should be charging them more money, but to them, it means that they should devote more resources. So there we are. But I think, it's proving to be a very successful channel in terms of value, right? And that's one thing I think is substantially different to when the PC Web launched, right? I mean, I think people didn't spend against things that were measurable enough, and they made a lot of bad decisions. The boom years were not sustainable. Whereas mobile, what's going on in mobile right now is something that's not only sustainable, but will continue to grow massively because the value is there relative to other marketing channels. Yeah. And the value is there in terms of being a positive investment for you as a company, right? So, I'm hugely optimistic on that, and that's kind of even separate from the fact that more and more consumers are going to leverage it in terms of the amount of time in their day of leisure time that's going to be on these devices versus other devices. I mean, I think that metric, if we could get better at understanding and tracking that metric, and we're going to try to do ourselves some work in this area, I think that's what really is going to show brands how crucial it is, right? Because people are too busy and too cluttered and too overwhelmed, and this device will be when they really have time to think about things.
Yeah, it's and it's great. I think for the first time, obviously, that the way that you can measure on these devices really does, trumps anything that's come before it. But how does it evolve? So we're talking about the here and now. Even if you take a mobile first approach today, and look at how you can leverage the platform to satisfy, a consumer's query. And as you said, it can be whether you're on a Wi-Fi connection or a 3G connection or an edge connection. It can be morning, afternoon, lunch, dinner, snack, evening tea. It doesn't matter. I mean, you can pinpoint everything and it's highly targeted. How does this industry that you guys are pioneering, how does it evolve to where does it go from here as the technology moves and the consumer becomes sophisticated? Because maybe that first banner ad that was on Yahoo had a 98% click-through. But somehow, a 0.002% click-through is good now, all these years later. So how do we avoid that catastrophe with mobile?
Yeah, I mean, I think you're right, mobile is this intersection now between creative and the resurgence of creative and the importance of creative.
Yeah.
With measurability and targeting, and how do we not mess that up?
That's a good. That's the question.
Yeah, and it's not going to be just us that drives that. I think agencies are going to be absolutely critical in partnership with the brands to make sure that we do a better job than we've done on previous digital channels, and that's what excites us about it. It's one of the reasons why we're trying to push both InMobi analytics and 3D experiences and rich media experiences, right? So, like, what is that right combination? And I think, you're going to see a lot of testing from people, but I agree. And I think what's interesting is you also see tablets, right? So where do we go from here? I'll give you a couple of things that I think are relevant on tablets. First off, obviously, I mean, our 3D experience is a tablet experience. That's what that experience is right now. And we think the creative potential in those devices is even higher than other devices.
Yep.
And the other thing we see is that the conversion rates are even higher, right? So, I'd heard of brands saying, my conversion between the tablet and PC web is equivalent, so I'm not going to do any optimization of my site to create a tablet experience because my conversions are already good. And my push to them is your conversion should be 3 times better. You've just proven that you do need to invest in a tablet optimized experience. You see the brand engagement metrics, both Insight Express and I think Dynamic Logic. I think both of them have come back with metrics saying, mobile's achieving 3 to 5x higher brand engagement metrics than PC web. And you see in our study, right, preferences by consumers that they prefer this as a shopping channel. So how do we not mess up that, right? I mean, this is like the stars are aligned here. How do we try to be smart about it? And I'm sure we're going to make mistakes along the way, but on the other hand, hopefully we can really do advancements that are the right thing for consumers, and in that way make the right decisions.
Yeah, and do it in that forgiveness window that we're in right now, so to speak, right? As the technology changes. I want to kind of draw back again, and I want to, for my last question, really talk about the challenges that it must have been for a company like InMobi to grow this big and reach, have this incredible reach that you guys do, and have these impressions that you do. How does something like that get rolling?
One piece at a time.
Is it really that?
I think networks in general, really can provide scale both to advertisers and ultimately then feed those benefits to publishers. I think mobile in general, we did build a platform to be able to withstand that scale. We reach right now on a monthly basis about 314 million consumers. And that's all on the mobile display side of the fence. So this isn't about SMS texting. This is really about the future of mobile. And but the reality is that number could be 3 billion,
Yeah.
right, in short order. So we have built an engineering team and a platform so that we can move to 3 billion consumers a month. And I think the potential is just endless. But you know, we have about close to 300 people at the company. So there's a lot of people working very hard and a lot of passion and belief in this channel that I think has enabled us to get where we are today, and hopefully we can continue to have as much success.
I love it. I love it. I mean, I'm so fascinated by what you guys are doing. And you know, it's not even it is. It's the advertising platform, but it's more than that at this point. When you reach that number of consumers, you get such a pulse of what's going on, like every day. You can, you know, if you're an analytic junkie, you can be in there getting a deeper understanding of what's going on in this industry and where the opportunities are. And I think if you hit 3 billion, you know, consumers, or reach 3 billion people a month, that is, you know, if I'm an analyst firm, I'm looking over at you guys saying, well, we're out of business. Ultimately, we should not be focusing on mobile because of the insight that you guys get from that. So that's what really excites me about what you guys are doing. That and the fact that, you know, you're bridging that gap between these devices and commerce, which I think is a critical component to this. I love it. You know, I get very excited talking to companies like you, and especially you, Anne. I've really enjoyed this conversation. How can people find out more about what you guys are up to?
Feel free to call me or email me directly, anne.frisbie@inmobi.com. Or go to our website, InMobi.com, and you can find out tons of stuff. In fact, a lot of the stats you're talking about, there's hundreds of pages of stats on what's going on in mobile and research that we're trying to share with the industry. So feel free to use that as well.
I mean, I got to commend you guys. Your blog is one of the most active blogs I've seen in this space. I mean, it's if not at least once a day, there's a posting, a relevant posting up there, and it's consistent. I mean, you know, in the times that I've been following you guys, it's incredible the amount of activity that you guys have. So statistics, insight, I mean, it's all up there, and it's all easily laid out. I mean, so you know, whoever is doing that is doing an exceptional job, and it's probably indicative of what's going on inside of the company. I love it.
Good. I'm glad you're liking it. We really appreciate it.
Well, you guys who are watching and listening to this, go check it out, InMobi.com. It's just that simple, InMobi.com. And if not for anything else other than the statistic that they provide, if you're a software developer, if you're out there building and you're looking for ways to generate revenue or lead generation or stay in business, which is really, as an independent software developer, I feel that pain. Go out and start to leverage what's available to you, and start at InMobi.com. Can I sell it any more than that, is that?
No, that's it. Sounds good to me. InMobi.com, and you can go to /research or developer section, wherever you want.
Well, it's been great, and thank you so much for doing this. I really appreciate the insight that you brought. So candid and but I mean, so rooted and deep understanding of what's going on out there. I really appreciate your time.
Been a true pleasure. I really appreciate it.
I've been speaking with Anne Frisbie, who is the VP and Managing Director for North America for InMobi. Go and check them out at InMobi.com. For those of you who are still watching and listening, and I know there are many of you out there, I really appreciate it. If you have any feedback, comments, suggestions, you know where to reach me, untether@gmail.com. I respond to every single email or direct message or Twitter post. So have at her. Let me know what you're thinking about this. I know that you've found this one great and insightful. So thank you for watching, Anne. Thank you so much for being a part of this. I'll see you guys next time on Untether.tv.